This is the Barker Historical Museum, located at 7 Day Street in Fredonia, New York, 14063. Today is May 3rd, 01. And please tell us your name.
I'm Nelson Dahmer.
And your birth date.
I was born on March 14th, 1929.
And your current address.
I live at 77 Seal Street in Dunkirk, New York.
And the war in which you served.
I served technically as a Korean veteran, essentially in the post-Korean, pre-Vietnam area.
Okay. And your branch of service?
I what?
Branch of service.
I served in the United States Naval Reserve, and active duty.
And your highest rank?
Lieutenant, junior grade.
So, Mr. Palmer, what was your most vivid experience?
Well, my most vivid experience was a number of things. I'd gone to a very exclusive Northeastern college and was exposed to the riches of the country. But until I entered officer candidate school, it was the first time I really had an experience of people from all over the country. The Navy at that time only had one officer candidate school, which was in Newport, Rhode Island. And to see the variety of people, all of whom were college graduates, this country was producing was a very rewarding experience. The other thing that influenced me greatly, everything in the Navy is divided in three different kinds. And about officers, there were young studs, old floods, and lieutenant commanders. And the amusing part, and very surprising to me, was how well the old floods got along with the young studs and vice versa. And nobody got along much with lieutenant commanders. So I had a very, very interesting experience, which I would be happy to,
Oh, please elaborate.
talk about. Well, I went to Newport, Rhode Island to OCS in September of '53, having graduated from the master's degree in architecture at Yale. And I was pre-designated to go into what was called air intelligence. When I got to Newport, nobody knew what the hell it was. And but from Newport, being commissioned, I went to the air station in Jacksonville, Florida, and was welcomed into what was known as the Brown Shoe Navy. I mean, the Brown Shoe Navy is completely different than the Black Shoe Navy. Oh yeah. And Aviation Ground Officer School. And naval aviation is unique and separate from U.S. Air Force. There are very few non-flying officers in the naval air, of which intelligence is the only ones. After spending the winter in Jacksonville, we were sent up this spring to Washington, D.C. for special training in intelligence. And that was absolutely marvelous. Being in Washington at that time, there was no room and board, one thing and another, so two of us rented a Georgetown townhouse for $75 a month, completely furnished. And my friend, who was a lawyer from Denver, Colorado, and a big booster of that spot, met some gal who was into the activity of crashing embassy parties. And the toughest ones to crash were the parties at the Iranian embassy. There were huge tubs of caviar, but we managed to get into a few. At that time, everywhere you go in this country, the first thing you ask somebody when you meet them is, what do you do? Well, that time in Washington, that was a taboo question. You never asked anybody what they did. They were all supposedly engaged in the number of years in very high-level secret kinds of whatever it was. So after our tour in Washington, which is the best school I went through, a few of us were selected to go out to Alameda, California, on the bay. And we had a wonderful time out there. In fact, Alameda was just an absolutely fantastic spot. So what I really wanted to do in the service was serve at sea and see Japan, and preferably some other things. And through sheer luck, I had the opportunity to do so. Because the personnel officer, our last day, one of our last days in class in Alameda, which the Pacific Fleet Air Intelligence School or something like that. And there were we ensigns and some full lieutenants and some lieutenant commanders, all of whom were flyers. And the lieutenant commanders would be assigned to staffs, the lieutenants would be assigned to couriers, and the rest of us, ensigns, would be assigned to squadrons. And the guy came up and said, there were 2 staff openings overseas, one in Japan and one in what was then called Formosa. And I thought, well, nobody was rushing out to talk to this guy. And I went up and I inquired about the one in Formosa. And a friend of mine, Dick Ulick, was a lawyer and another ensign from Boston. He inquired about the one in Japan. And I really wanted to go to Japan, and he didn't care. Well, he got Japan, I got Formosa. Oh, damn, I booted it, right? So we took off to go across the Pacific. I was assigned to Commander of Task Force 72, Formosa Patrol Force, located somewhere, and nobody knew where the hell it was. It took me 1 month to the day to get to my command, that I was supposed to report. And curious things happened. The most curious it was, finally, the Commander of Naval Forces Philippines figured, well, Commander Task Force 72 has to be somewhere in Formosa, so they shipped me off to Formosa, and I was up back, Commander, and he said, okay, we got the deal. We'll put you on the destroyer. He'll drop you off. The flagship's out in the Pescador Islands. Okay, super. So we took off, and we hadn't gotten like more than a half a mile from the dock, and the Chinese communists started bombing Quemoy and Matsu Islands. So off we went, and the skipper of the destroyer was a nifty guy, and he was short. What he needed was a few more staff officers, and he said, would I like to stand assistant officer deck underway? And I said, yeah. So I got the midwatch and this guy, and so we were out there watching Matsu boom, boom, boom. He picked up this radar contact, and we better investigate it. So it was my job. We set, figure out the chord speed, blah, blah, and so the officer on our deck, who was about my age, called the skipper, and he said, okay, well, set modified general quarters, clang, clang, clang. So from the bridge, he called Combat Information Center, alert on bogey number 1, bar control, man mount number 1, 2 5-inch guns. I remember standing up on that bridge saying, I think maybe I ought to pay particular attention to what the hell is going on here, because this may be really something, And, well, it wasn't. It was a British tramp steamer. Everybody had gone to bed. Nobody at the bridge. Doors flapping in the breeze. The thing on what they call the iron mic, going back and forth. Oh my God. The 2 of us finally were relieved at 4 in the morning, and we managed to get up about the same time, a little after 9. Went down to the wardroom for breakfast. The guy sat around having coffee and said, hey, we understand you guys almost started World War III last night. Well, and it was not amusing to either one of us. Yeah, we damn well could have started World War III. So anyway, my experience being assigned to the staff of the Commander of Task Force 72 would like the Library of Congress to look into, because I had no idea how long it lasted. I think it had been established about 3 years, maybe 2 years before I arrived. Because the fellow I worked for first, Bob Stubbs, who was an intelligence officer, had served as assistant intelligence officer before I did, and I relieved him when he left. And I mean, should not have had that job. I mean, it was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And but Stubbs had amazing stories of the shenanigans. We're talking about like mash afloat. I mean, there was plenty of it. Because that's the way life was in the 50s, in the service. So anyway, I waited for Stubbs' replacement to be assigned from San Diego, summer heck. And they sent this thing as, hey, I've got it, I'm on board, and you got the job. But the animal I worked for, and we were really a close, was exactly my father's age. He graduated from Annapolis in 25. His Annapolis nickname was Nappy, for Napoleon. And he really was a Top Gun hotshot. He really was, and it was an absolute joy working for him. And my two best friends on the staff, it was a small staff, there were only 15 or 20 of us, were two senior commanders in the operations department, Wadsworth and Metke. And everybody got along really in a nifty kind of way. And I've always wondered, whatever happened to Task Force 72? How long did they keep this thing going? Because we had, our flagship was an aircraft carrier, a seaplane carrier, which went back and forth. I served on 3 of them, 3 flagships. And we were about the last of what was known before the war as the U.S. Asiatic Fleet. And one of the flagships carried on the tradition of having curry every Thursday noon. And everybody hated it except myself. I loved it. But, and they were very nice, comfortable ships, exceedingly comfortable, and luxurious compared to the time I spent on a destroyer and being on an oiler also for a couple of days. But a lot of this is in my book. But I'm saying that Pacific Fleet notoriously is looser than the Atlantic Fleet. And the Air Force is looser in the Pacific Fleet than the Atlantic. And when you got to the China Sea, things got pretty loose. But very pleasant. No difficult times. I could not believe going through all the schools, mostly as on, how little nonsense was permitted or inflicted on me. And I would like to say, I think more Americans should have the experience of serving in the military and thinking about it before they perhaps enter a career in business or where have you. Because now, in the 1950s, there were only 3 things certain, death, taxes, and being drafted. I mean, you were not about to escape the draft. It was universal. It went on from, 1939 to 1979 about. And it was absolutely inevitable. I think some way should be found. And perhaps some of the leaders, major industries in this country, like A. Mahoney, would like to hire a guy right out of business school or Alfred Ceramics or something, and tell him, if you go in the Navy or the Air Force, you qualify in the Navy for an officer of the deck on way, fly on a carrier or get your pilot's license, be a platoon leader, you can come back here in 2 years, we'll pay you exactly the same price as the guy we're going to hire next year. And I would like to see if that message could possibly get across to some of our major industries, because I think it's an important message. It assisted me in so many ways, in my lifetime, about having that experience of serving in the military and being involved at a fairly high level. Because everybody I worked for, it was on, have a cup of coffee, had 2 stars, and that experience, getting to know the people who are full-time, their career is military, and the civilian experience with the military, I think, is something that should be more broadly pressed.
What else do you remember? What else can you tell us about the time that you served? You said you enlisted in July of '53. You said you enlisted in July of 1953 when you were 24.
Yeah, well, I had 4 years of college, 3 years of architecture school, and my local draft board over here in Village Hall, Fredonia, New York, was, oh boy, they had their quota to fill, who knows, I mean, there was no question, I was in. And I figured, the hell with this, rather than spend 24 years, 24 months in the Army, I would just serve, see what the Navy offered. And my congressman sent me all kinds of things you could do in the Navy. And right off the bat, there's some funny things. My friends and neighbors at the local draft board, Village Hall, Fredonia, ordered me to take a draft physical in mental when I was still in school. And oh my heavens, I was actually appalled at what terrible shape the American youth were in at that point. And another architecture school student, a couple of years behind me, Wally Tassuniti, the conductor's grandson, nifty guy. And I went through that thing, and he was just appalled too at what terrible shape the youth of the country were in 1952, 53. So when I went down, in order to get into the OCS program, you had to go through a procedure in New York City, your Naval District. And finally I got through. The first thing, you walk in the door, some corpsman there slaps something over your eyes, says, read the chart, bang, see, read the chart, okay. And so I'm sitting there next to this kid, and there was skippy shorts waiting for whatever was coming on the next physical examination. And he's just shaking his head, what's your problem? And he said, well, before you even take your coat off, you got to read the chart, bang, bang. I said, yeah. He said, well, 2 months ago I came in, bang, same guy. And he said to me, well, your hours aren't 20/20, but I think it's credible. You come back, get a pair of glasses, get them a set, get used to them, come on back, and I'm sure you'll be fine. So I thought, oh, weird. So anyway, I got the glasses, I used to them, came back, got in the door, here was the same guy. He said, oh, you wear glasses? Yeah. Well, take them off, see what you can see, bang. And he said, what the hell are you wearing glasses for? You got 20/20 vision. So that was really my first experience in the U.S. service. And it's sort of a funny story. But the other thing was, to get into this intelligence thing that I was in, I had to be interviewed at the district intelligence officer's office. And so I went in, began the train down from New Haven to New York. There were 4 plainclothes commanders. And they asked me, this is 1953, they asked me what I thought about Senator McCarthy. And so I said, like, he was really off base. He was, you know, not really a dangerous thing, but he was. And I figured, oh boy, walking away, take the train back to Maine. I mean, I have really blown it this time.
By being honest.
Oh, yeah. And the only thing they were impressed about, they asked me if I ever saw any kind of a watch duty. I said, yeah, I was at an airplane, air raid watcher during, I had a watch like every Wednesday after school. Two of us would go down in this little hut on the harbor, and we'd spend 4 hours watching for airplanes and reporting into Buffalo. And somehow that sort of impressed them. I have really no idea why it did. But at least apparently, my condemnation, somewhat mild as it was, of General McCarthy, Senator McCarthy, and zapped me completely, which I was very fortunate. But since my experience, I've always been fully aware of where foreign relations, foreign policy could be conducted in this country. And I've watched some really kooky foreign secretaries, state secretaries, and some not too bad. Well, only one, Kissinger. Anyway, what Americans don't understand about the Chinese is basically this. The Chinese do not have any prejudice. They don't care whether you're white, black, yellow, brown, or red. If you're not Chinese, you're all barbarians. Absolutely all. I mean, if you're not Chinese, you're a barbarian by definition. And yes, there's this whole class of people called the overseas Chinese. In Singapore particularly, but as well all through the Far East and over here. And the Chinese have a point. To their point of view, and we're talking going back 4,000 years, everybody else is a barbarian. And until we come to grips with that point of view, we're not going to be effective in our relationship with the Republic or what have you of China.
So you think that that attitude is still there in China and that's affecting our relationship with them now and
Well,
all the
of
things
course.
we've seen with the spy plane? And
Yeah, of course it is. And the Chinese are not about to attack Formosa because they're Chinese on Formosa. I mean, and the two of them are going to, blend together. Mm-hmm. And this nonsense has been going on between China and Taiwan. When I was over there, the Grand Hotel in Taipei was a nice spot to drop in, have a drink and a dinner, And they had a gift shop. And you could buy, at the height of the tensions between the two countries, the gilded metal earrings that had obviously been made no more than 2 weeks before in Beijing. I mean, the secret trade between the, oh yeah. And both sides are really, I think, playing ourselves as perhaps the barbarians we really are when it comes to relationships with them.
that's an interesting view.
A few points. And this latest incident is kind of amusing because what the hell was this plane trying to do? I mean, this whole task force I was with should have been sent back home for one satellite, And the surveillance plane was really not on a naval mission. It was on a national security agency mission, which was admitted by the assistant director of that thing in Buffalo 2 weeks ago, which the networks never picked up. And they're up there listening to cell phones and email. I forget it. There's only one thing we should find out in what's going on there, is what they call the order of battle, which is pretty simple to find out. Who's where, how many are there, how effective are they there? And you don't need a 24-person crew to figure that kind of stuff out.
I thought some of little.
Yeah. But it's interesting that from my own experience, being at both Taiwan Patrol Force and it would be what's gone on in the last couple of weeks. Yeah, that's about it.
What other experiences do you remember?
What's that?
What other experiences do you remember from the 2 years that you served?
Well, all in all, it was really among the top best 3 years of my life. I had an absolute ball, and which is why I would suggest and urge people to consider serving in the military. One of my best experiences, funniest experiences, we used to take, because on our flagship could hold a whole squadron of seaplanes, crew and everything else, and we wouldn't have a squadron attached to us. Once in a while, planes we'd set up. And the Admiral figured that, every 2 or 3 months, we'd go to Hong Kong on a different flagship. And each flagship 2 trips to Hong Kong for a week. And so we were taking this group of guys from Okinawa, where we were home ported, down to Hong Kong for a week. And it was a nice night, and it's hard to say. I never met any black naval officers, never. I mean, nobody had any prejudice against it, because I went out on deck one time after lunch, after dinner, and started talking with this guy who was black, who was my age, my rank, the Air Force pilot, on Okinawa, going on to Hong Kong. And they were just talking about his day, my day, routine, one thing and other, back and forth. And we were joined by a guy the same age, who was first lieutenant in the Army on Hong Kong, or on Okinawa, who had, in the Naval, won a trip down. And so we asked him what his day was like, when he had heard us talk about, our days, what we were doing the service. He was absolutely aghast at and when he told us what he did, I said, oh my Lord, both of us, you got to do all, oh my God. And it was so funny. And then we both saw it. Well, if you don't don't really appreciate flying at Mach 1 or going through the boiling seas, well, the Army's the only way. And oh yeah, both of us, both the black pilot and I were thinking, thank God we weren't in the Army, I'll tell you that much. That's just a one,
Yeah. Did you make a lot of friends while you were there?
I made a lot of friends at the time, none of whom have continued with me. And what I want to do with this really is talk a little bit, and also the manuscript I submitted, that what we were all up to in the Taiwan Patrol Force was part of the Cold War, and I don't think the story, there's a good chance the story may not, any of it, come out. If you talk about history, as that attempt drop a little candle on a wire down a very large black hole and see what's going on. That's basically what it is. And so the original history that does not really fully belong in the non-fiction ranks of the library, because you're trying to illuminate something which is very difficult to do. Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity for this oral interview.
Well, wonderful. Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Well, thank you.